Moses and Jasmine had it all: wealth, success, and two beautiful children. But in their pursuit of ambition, they neglected the one thing that truly mattered: being present for their kids. Left alone with gadgets and virtual distractions, Larry and Nora's curiosity led them down a dangerous path that would shock their parents and change their lives forever. This is a gripping story of neglect, temptation, and the painful journey to rebuild love, trust, and family in modern Africa. Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. Moses was the embodiment of success. Tall, handsome, and impeccably dressed, he owned a thriving business empire that spanned several industries. From the outside, everything about him radiated success. His wife, Jasmine, matched him in ambition and elegance. She was beautiful, smart, and meticulous, climbing the ranks of her bank career with relentless determination. Their home was modern, lavish, and filled with all the luxuries money could buy. Yet, behind the smiles and glittering lifestyle, a subtle void had begun to grow. Larry, their 10-year-old son, was bright and energetic, always eager to explore and learn. His younger sister, Nora, at 8, was charming, sweet, and quick-witted, with a smile that could light up any room. Moses and Jasmine loved them, yet they were never truly present. Work had consumed them, and the children's needs were often set aside. Tablets, phones, and toys became substitutes for bedtime stories and playful conversations. The children's laughter, once warm and boisterous, had gradually faded into the quiet hum of gadgets. Moses and Jasmine thought they were providing well, showering their children with the best of everything, but they failed to see that emotional absence could be as damaging as physical neglect. The house was filled with everything money could buy, yet it lacked the one thing children truly needed: their parents' attention. Even the domestic helpers, who were loving and caring, could not replace the guidance and presence of a parent. The children grew independent in unhealthy ways, learning to entertain themselves without connection to the people who were supposed to nurture them. Moses and Jasmine were oblivious, proud of their successful children, blind to the early cracks forming in their children's hearts. Time passed, and the children's reliance on technology increased. Larry and Nora spent hours each day on their tablets, exploring apps, games, and social media. Moses and Jasmine felt content, believing that keeping the children occupied was a sign of progress. They praised the children's independence, never realizing that their absence was allowing curiosity to take dangerous directions. Their bond with their children weakened. Conversations became brief and transactional, filled with instructions and reminders rather than warmth or guidance. Larry and Nora learned to avoid questions that required thought or attention from their parents. Their world had become small and screen-filled, a space where curiosity went unchecked, and boundaries blurred. Even the helpers began to notice subtle changes in the children. They spent more time alone in rooms, whispering to their devices, experimenting in ways that alarmed those who cared for them. Yet, no one dared confront Moses and Jasmine directly. How could a parent believe their child was venturing into forbidden territory when everything looked so normal? Moses and Jasmine, consumed by their careers, were blind to the warning signs. They mistook quiet independence for maturity, failing to see the emotional distance growing between themselves and their children. The stage was set for a painful awakening, one that would shake the foundations of their family forever. Larry's curiosity began innocently enough. Online videos and games led to questions about bodies, relationships, and intimacy. He shared what he learned with Nora, who followed willingly, intrigued by the mysteries he uncovered. Their exploration, fueled by technology, went unchecked because their parents were absent and uninformed. Moses and Jasmine remained convinced that their children's screen time was educational. "They are learning," Jasmine would say, proud of their digital literacy. In reality, the children were learning things far beyond their age, topics that should have been introduced with guidance, care, and context. The parents' absence left a dangerous vacuum, filled by content meant for adults. The children began hiding their activities, sneaking into bedrooms and whispering questions to each other. Their innocence eroded slowly, replaced by secret knowledge and forbidden curiosity. Each day, the screen became more than entertainment. It became a window into a world they weren't ready to understand. This dependence created subtle rebellion. When the parents called, the children ignored them, caught in the glow of their devices. They began experimenting with behaviors, mimicking what they had seen online. Moses and Jasmine had unknowingly allowed a toxic independence to take root, unaware that boundaries were dissolving behind closed doors. The house was quiet, yet charged with tension. The hum of devices replaced laughter. The children's independence had become defiance. Domestic helpers tried to enforce rules, but Larry and Nora resisted, knowing they had learned how to hide the truth from their parents. One evening, Moses and Jasmine returned home expecting the usual chaos of a family dinner. But silence met them instead. The living room was empty, toys lay scattered, and the air felt heavy. They called the children's names, first casually, then with growing concern. No reply came. Panic rose in Jasmine's chest. Moses's face, usually composed, betrayed worry. They searched the house, opening doors, calling louder, until finally, they reached Larry's bedroom. The sight inside froze them in horror. Larry and Nora were entangled in ways siblings should never be. Shock, disbelief, and a surge of guilt overwhelmed them simultaneously. In that moment, Moses and Jasmine realized the depth of their neglect. Their children, left unsupervised, had crossed boundaries that no parent should have to imagine. Tears and regret filled their hearts. Their wealth and success had come at a devastating cost, the emotional and moral development of their children. The parents' grief was suffocating. Moses and Jasmine struggled to find words, each trying to mask the shame and guilt with anger and confusion. Their children, terrified and confused, did not understand why they were being reprimanded so severely. They had simply acted on curiosity in the absence of guidance. The discipline that followed was firm and emotional. Tears, scolding, and explanations were mixed with apologies. Moses and Jasmine blamed themselves. They had thought providing for their children meant giving gifts, money, and material comfort. They had not realized that emotional presence was irreplaceable. Larry and Nora, facing the consequences of their actions, were scared and ashamed. They had crossed a boundary they could never erase. The parents realized the need for professional intervention. They contacted child therapists and psychologists, understanding that rebuilding trust and teaching boundaries required expert guidance. That evening, Moses and Jasmine sat in silence, holding each other's hands. The house, once a symbol of their success, now felt hollow. They promised each other that they would repair the damage, no matter how long it took. They had learned that absence, even with the best intentions, could create lasting harm. After consultations with therapists, the decision was made to separate the children. Larry would attend a boarding school in another city, while Nora would go to a different school. Both children were assigned therapists to guide them through the trauma. The separation was heartbreaking for all involved. Larry and Nora, who had once been inseparable, now faced an unfamiliar reality. They clung to each other in the last moments together, afraid and confused. The parents' guilt deepened with every tearful hug. Moses and Jasmine understood that the luxury of proximity could no longer shield their children from consequences. Even the domestic helpers felt the weight of the separation. They had cared deeply for the children but knew that professional intervention was necessary. The family's decision was guided not by punishment alone but by the need for healing and guidance. Moses and Jasmine, though broken-hearted, committed to maintaining regular contact. Visits, calls, and video chats were carefully structured to ensure the children did not feel abandoned again. This was the beginning of a long and painful journey toward emotional recovery. At first, Larry and Nora resisted therapy. They were defensive, skeptical, and unsure why strangers were asking about their thoughts and actions. But gradually, the therapists created a safe environment where the children could speak freely, confront their fears, and understand their emotions. The parents participated indirectly, attending sessions designed to educate them on proper parenting and emotional support. Moses and Jasmine realized that love alone was not enough. Children needed guidance, structure, and presence. They had been absent in ways that no amount of money could compensate. As weeks passed, the children began to confront their curiosity, confusion, and guilt. They learned boundaries, appropriate relationships, and healthy ways to express emotions. Moses and Jasmine, while watching from a distance, understood the impact of their absence and vowed to restore balance. It became clear that healing would require patience, empathy, and consistency. The children needed time to regain trust, and the parents needed to redefine their roles. Both sides embarked on a journey that would test their patience and reshape their lives forever. Time passed, and the children began confronting the impact of their actions. Larry, once rebellious and secretive, started acknowledging his curiosity and mistakes. Nora, shy and anxious at first, gradually found the courage to speak about her confusion and fears. Both children struggled with guilt, ashamed of what had happened and confused about boundaries. Therapy sessions helped them process these emotions, teaching them that curiosity was natural but needed guidance. Moses and Jasmine, meanwhile, faced their own demons. They reflected on how ambition and wealth had blinded them to their children's emotional needs. Every success, every achievement, now felt hollow when measured against the price they had paid in neglect. Their absence had created a gap that no luxury or discipline alone could fill. The family began to realize that healing required honest communication. Moses and Jasmine admitted their failings to the therapists, expressing their regrets openly. They were no longer just wealthy parents, they were vulnerable, broken, and willing to learn how to be truly present for their children. Larry and Nora started to see their parents not as perfect beings but as humans capable of mistakes and growth. Slowly, a fragile bridge began forming between the children and their parents, built on honesty, acknowledgement of faults, and the shared goal of healing together. Therapists worked diligently with Larry and Nora to teach the concept of boundaries. They explained the difference between curiosity and inappropriate actions. Through discussions, exercises, and role-play, the children learned how to respect personal space and the emotional limits of themselves and others. Moses and Jasmine also received parental guidance. They learned that simply providing material wealth was not enough. Presence, attention, and emotional engagement were essential. They started implementing rules at home, daily check-ins, structured play, and scheduled family time that prioritized connection over convenience. For the first time, the children realized the importance of rules and structure. They could explore, learn, and grow without feeling lost or neglected. Technology was no longer the master of their world. It became a tool for learning under careful supervision. The family began to see small victories. Larry expressed himself more openly during therapy, while Nora smiled and laughed again. Every day brought subtle progress, rebuilding trust, love, and understanding that had once been taken for granted. Visits between the children and their parents became a cornerstone of healing. Moses and Jasmine arranged regular trips, dinners, and weekend activities that focused on bonding, not business or screens. Larry and Nora learned that their parents' love was genuine, not transactional. The children's confidence grew as they discovered they could talk about their feelings without fear of punishment. They shared frustrations, hopes, and small victories, knowing their voices were finally heard. The parents listened attentively, absorbing lessons in humility and empathy. Moses and Jasmine also learned to celebrate the children's growth instead of just academic or material achievements. Praise was given for kindness, honesty, and personal responsibility, values that had been overlooked in their pursuit of wealth. By the end of the year, trust had been partially restored. The house that once echoed with silent screams now resonated with laughter, conversation, and the small sounds of everyday family life. It was far from perfect, but it was real. One of the critical lessons for the family was responsible technology use. Larry and Nora were guided to use devices safely, learning about privacy, limits, and balance. The parents introduced monitoring, time limits, and content restrictions, teaching children that technology should be a tool, not a crutch. Jasmine and Moses participated in this process, learning alongside their children. They modeled behavior, putting aside phones and laptops during family time, showing by example that presence was more valuable than digital distractions. The children responded positively. They explored games and educational apps with supervision, discussing content openly with their parents. Technology became a bridge for learning, not a source of isolation. This change symbolized the larger shift in the household. Boundaries, communication, and guidance replaced neglect, showing that mistakes could become lessons when approached thoughtfully and with care. As months went by, the children matured emotionally. Larry developed leadership skills, showing empathy toward his sister and others at school. Nora regained her joyful, affectionate nature, her smiles returning as trust in her family deepened. Moses and Jasmine witnessed the rewards of their efforts. They had transformed from distant, ambitious parents into present, nurturing caregivers. They learned to listen actively, respond with patience, and guide without controlling. The children also learned resilience. They recognized that mistakes, even serious ones, could be corrected with honesty, support, and effort. The family grew stronger together, united by shared experiences, lessons, and love. Every milestone, every small act of communication or cooperation, reinforced the importance of emotional presence. Wealth and material comfort were no longer the measure of success. Connection and guidance became the family's true achievements. After nearly a year of separation, therapy, and guided growth, Larry and Nora returned home permanently. The family began implementing routines that emphasized togetherness, shared meals, weekend outings, and regular family discussions. The children thrived in this environment. They played, laughed, and studied with their parents actively involved. Moses and Jasmine had learned the delicate balance between discipline, guidance, and freedom. Trust had been rebuilt, slowly but firmly. The home no longer felt cold or empty. It pulsed with warmth, care, and presence. The parents' attention had become the family's most treasured resource, replacing gadgets and toys that had once dominated their lives. Together, they celebrated their renewed bond. Every hug, every smile, and every shared meal reminded them that love, attention, and guidance were more valuable than wealth, luxury, or status. Moses and Jasmine shared their experience with friends and relatives, warning them of the dangers of neglecting emotional needs in favor of work or wealth. Their story became a lesson. No success could replace the presence, guidance, and love a child needed. Larry and Nora also reflected on their journey. They learned boundaries, responsibility, and resilience. Their childhood had been marred by mistakes, but these lessons equipped them with tools to navigate life thoughtfully and empathetically. The family realized that pain could become a teacher. Their mistakes had been costly, but they had also created an opportunity for growth, understanding, and reconnection. They had learned that failure was not final, it could be transformed into wisdom. Together, they vowed to remain present, nurturing, and mindful, ensuring that no child in their care would ever feel neglected or lost to the digital world. Years later, the family looked back on their journey. Larry and Nora were thriving academically, socially, and emotionally. They had grown resilient, empathetic, and self-aware, carrying lessons that would guide them into adulthood. Moses and Jasmine had transformed into attentive, loving parents. They balanced work with family, ensuring that their children felt heard, valued, and cherished. The home was alive with laughter, discussion, and warmth, no longer dominated by silent screens or empty spaces. The family had endured pain, shame, and fear, but they emerged stronger and closer. They had learned that wealth, gifts, and success were meaningless without presence, attention, and guidance. Love, connection, and emotional care were the true treasures of life. Looking toward the future, they were filled with hope. Mistakes had been made, lessons learned, and bonds rebuilt. The family was united, resilient, and prepared for whatever life might bring, proving that even the deepest wounds could be healed with love, patience, and dedication. No amount of wealth or success can replace the love, attention, and guidance of a parent. Children need presence, care, and boundaries to grow into responsible and emotionally healthy adults. True parenting means being there, not just providing. If you have watched till this moment, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more powerful and touching stories with lessons like this. Until next time, stay safe, stay real.